Right, and that's when you get into establishing what is real. When you subscribe to those things, you deem it real, so therefore it's reality, right? If you acknowledge that it's just something in your space, it may be real, it may not be real, it may be perceived differently through my eyes if I actually had the opportunity to look at it. But once you establish that that is real, it is your reality then. If you just establish that that's information in this realm, I don't actually know what's going on, you may not live here. You may not be in the same space that everybody else is in. And that's what I've been trying to do lately, is just identify information as information and not as truth or fact. Just identify that that's how it works in this realm that I'm in right now. That doesn't mean that's how it works exclusively all the time, everywhere.
Yep.
And we've talked a lot about time travel and some other stuff. Maybe gotten away from how information affects ego. I kind of want to go back to that. We might have to chop up this video quite a bit since we've been kind of jumping around. But yeah, I would like to bring up an example of how information can how that affects us. And one of those topics that I wrote down over this last week was the topic of abortion. And this is an example. I don't care where you
Okay.
stand with abortion or not, but the idea is, we ask someone, well, where do you stand with abortion? You get, I'm pro-life or pro-choice, right? They're either, okay with abortion or want it outlawed. One of the two. You have two opposing views with these people, or with everybody really. You either stand one way or another,
Yeah.
or I guess there's a smaller group that just really don't care because it doesn't affect them, because they aren't concerned about having kids or anything like that. But let's just say, for example's sake, so you have those two polarizing views. And it always seems to come up, no matter what, come election time, right? Well, where do you stand on this? And that will
Always.
decide how we dictate the sections of voters, Republican or Democrat, or because typical parties lean a particular way, and even religious sectors, Catholics, Christians, will lean one way or another way. And, this is like an identifying piece of information for political gain. This isn't actually about children. So when you ask someone, where
It
do
really
you
is.
stand on this, some people would say you got to be pro-life because you got to stand up for your religious beliefs or whatever. And some people would say, you got to be pro-choice because you got to stand up for those women. Those women should have the choice to do what they want with their body. And so you get this debate that's going on. Why do we have this debate that's been going on since we had the technology to do it? And it's like, why is this information always coming up? Why is this? And as from an ego perspective, we look at it as like having two choices. I remember in high school, like I had to identify what side I was on, because in the classroom we had to do a debate class, on this kind of stuff. And the real question should be, why do we have babies to dispose of? It's not, should we be pro-life or pro-choice? It's like, why do we even have that problem where we're deciding that maybe disposing of babies is a better idea? Maybe the problem is parenting or educating children to the degree of the responsibility it is to engage in, sexual intercourse and produce a child. Maybe that's the problem, where we're not
Yep.
actually getting through to our species, our society, the importance of the next generation. Because if we were to look at human life on the planet, we are apparently the most advanced out of all the species on this planet. And we're the only ones that actively, like, like,
Discard ourselves.
well, like, you know, I don't know. It's kind of interesting to think about. And that's where like
It is.
the
Oh,
ego
certainly.
comes into play big time. And instead of debating this issue over and over again, what we should probably do is how to be better stewards of our abilities. How can we get our population to be more responsible with the next generation of beings? Instead of we can pop them out like candy, and some are good candy, some are bad candy, and some candy comes out disformed, and some candy comes out, a little messed up, and some candy comes out extra sweet. That's how we're looking at children, is like candy coming out of a
Uh-huh.
factory. Some of it, sometimes you get a double one, one that's conjoined together. Sometimes, and then the majority of them are all the same, and then some of them are a little extra sweeter. Maybe one comes out a little smaller, and one comes out a little bigger. We're looking at children like they're a commodity, or like they're just like children, like whatever. And this is why we have this abortion debate, and this is also feeds the fire for these campaigns and these different debates, when it's like we're never going to solve that debate, so why do we keep bringing it up? And it's because that information is like energy, like it fuels the populace,
It's a tool.
right? Even though it's never going to be answered, because the root of the problem goes comes before the action. So abortion is the action when the problem arises, instead of going back further to where you don't have that problem in the first place. You know?
And another argument that is that always gets brought up too is, well, what about rape? You can't get rid of abortion because then you'll have women who were raped have kids. And at that point, you got to ask yourself, well, how good is our society that we have, all these
Right,
problems like
and
that? Like it still brings down to,
right, and
societal
that's why
issues.
that debate between pro-life or pro-choice will never be won, because we haven't
It's not the
right, that's
real
not the
issue.
real issue. The real issue is the minds of the people. Like, this is why we have this problem. Like we shouldn't have pro-choice because of rape. Does that make sense? We shouldn't have the
Yeah,
free choice to kill or discard or remove my child that was unwanted because of another crime. Like it's like you know
yeah.
two two two
Fix the
lefts don't
first
make a
problem
right.
before you have to focus on the
Right, two
second.
lefts
It's
don't
Yeah.
make a
it's
right
like
kind of idea. Because I was
mhm.
wronged, like we're gonna do this too. And that's, we really need to identify what's actually going on in society. And instead of running political ads about having pro-choice or pro-life to divide the people more, we should be having ads of how to be a more responsible species, a more responsible human being, how to educate people to be, disciplined with, who they are, and produce a further moving forward species, like an actual, like moving forward as a species, not just humans existing to exist, but we actually develop
Yeah.
a more coherent mental capacity for improving the species on the same level amongst everybody. And that's drawing me back to that information on how it affects ego, because when you're presented these things, how does that information affect you? Just like, the stuff that Zach brings up with the CIA article, we can go into that, and we've talked about it, and it brought up a whole bunch of different topics, right? That little piece of information totally affected everything that I was going to think about for the next week, I guess, per se, or the next few days, since he
Hmm.
he presented
Yep.
it to me. But you can interpret that differently, and when you get that information, what you choose to do with it impacts your ego, what's displayed outward. So let's kind of bring it back to that information, because all the stuff we even talked about here over this last hour, like, how is that going to affect us, or how is that going to affect the people viewing it?
Yeah. Oh yeah, precisely. There's it.
it's a thing where, we took this article that Zach gave us and we kind of ran with it and wound up going into a whole other topic, really more about just in general existing beyond the ego, about moving outside of reality and understanding that, reality is a bunch of information. We're really, we definitely went kind of far on the deep end with that one, but it's still as off topic as it kind of got, is part of this whole topic and this whole idea of what we're going with,
of
because
information.
that was almost like a live walkthrough of us interpreting information. That was almost like one huge
Yeah.
example showing people, wow, look at these guys. They went way off topic just because of this information that they found. And now we're back to where we are here and kind of bringing it a little more full circle. But yeah, I think it's definitely certainly it's information is a wild topic because it involves everything.
Well, it's so conceptual, and when you're talking about concepts in a conceptual topic, it just gets even more conceptual, and at that point, it's so intangible that it's so hard to stay on topic. And you, just like you were saying, when I introduced that article, it's like it almost jump started a whole nother idea, and which goes, to how information can affect you. It just kind of blew up in our minds and just lost, kind of just started a snowball effect, basically.
But that information, information is used to engross people, like encapsulate people, for sure. The information that you presented was like, hey, just think about this. Where other
Mm-hmm.
information is like mandatory information. Does that make sense? There's like a
Yeah.
couple different types of information.
Yeah. It
There's
really it
like,
does.
information that you have to have, and if you don't, like, like, like,
It's like red light,
yeah, if
green
you don't
light.
have that information, you're not going to be able to interact with the things properly. If you don't understand green means go and red means stop, you're going to end up, in a scuffle, with something going
Yeah.
on. So there's like this mandatory information that you just need to operate in this space or understanding, and then there's information that is out there that's interpretive or conceptual, like Zach said. And it's distinguishing between those two that I think is important. Because if you think, going back to like the abortion topic, if you think that's mandatory information to have, you're stuck in that realm. Whether,
It's because the way they present that information, basically requires a decision
right, and it
because they're
also
not
it
interpret. They're
also
not.
starts to write your life a little bit, because if you say, well, I don't want to be in that situation. Like, I want to have, like, when it's presented to you as a female or a male, it will hit you differently. And then, depending on what your peers think, you'll think differently. And it's like making you choose how the world will unfold without you even knowing how it's going to unfold. Because why even vote about it if, like, I'm not in that situation. I don't plan on being in that situation. So what's my concern with it? Because I know everybody's going to just keep arguing about it. So is it even important
Yep.
information for me to have or indulge in? And that's like what I'm trying to get across, is like how important like information actually is, and what kind of information is it. Now, if I was a female that was maybe in your situation, Zach, I had gone through something traumatic to where I have an planned, pregnancy happen, and then I'm presented with, vote for pro-choice or vote for pro-life. still don't even really necessarily have to pick a side, because you're in the moment now that is
No.
way more important than trying to decide on pro-life or pro-choice. You're needing to actually deal with stuff that's happening, right? And people say, well, you can't go to the doctor and have them remove it, if that's not something that's going on. It doesn't mean you're not getting help. It just means you're not getting help the way they want to provide it to you.
Exactly.
And I might be getting into topics that are really controversial, but I want to talk about them because I really want to find the underlying issue, because I'm really getting upset with politicians bringing up these points that take us nowhere as a society. They don't advance
just
us
hot
as a
button topics.
species. I'd like to bring up these topics to think differently about them, because we need to not even have that as a problem. Rape shouldn't even be a problem, and that starts with the thoughts and minds of the people. Abortion shouldn't even be a problem. Unwanted pregnancy shouldn't be a problem, because we're not advanced enough as a human being or a society to make proper decisions. And I'm not bringing that stuff up to be controversial. I'm just bringing it up to say, how are we interpreting information and how are we utilizing it?
And how are us humans going to solve the actual problem? That's the source of the problem.
And grow together as a unit, because we are, there's 7 billion of us, right? There's 7 billion of us on the planet, per se. Why do we have so much discourse? Like, why do we have so much strife between each other? Why do we have... And it's because of the way information is put in front of us, and it's because of the way we interpret information, and it's how we add that information to our ego, and because once you add that information to your ego, now you're subject to the ego. Like, now you're like, well, I believe this, so now I have to act on it. It's like if you say, well, I'm, pro-choice now. Well, now you have to act on it. You're going to have to tell people that you're pro-choice. You're going to have to maybe go to those events or rallies. You're maybe going to have to make that Facebook post, Or if you're pro-life, well, now I have to go to church. Now I have to, show on my Instagram how pro-life I am. Or, you see what I'm saying? Once we take that information and grab it, instead of just identifying it and trying to understand what the real issue is, or if it's even an issue at all, and then moving forward from there.
For sure.
We can go into other topics too on that same...
I don't know how to move on from that, man. That was some intense stuff.
I don't know. Have you thought about it like that before?
That totally opened up some thoughts for me. I haven't, especially on controversial ideas. I didn't even think about coming to this discussion on information and how the ego perceives it, to even think about controversial ideas. That's just such an eye-opener to me.
But it's, why is that there? Why is that there? Why do we debate on this every year with every vote?
Exactly.
It doesn't stop. And it's that information is there for some sort of energy source to keep something going, right? To keep this thing going, whatever it is. We're going to keep voting on this every year and change the laws every other year depending on the vote or whatever, and we're going to keep... But it doesn't stop the rape. It doesn't stop abortion. It doesn't stop... It doesn't stop irresponsibility. No. It just helps someone get elected, probably, based on votes.
And it goes for all of the controversial subjects. Everything is like that.
You could do the same thing with gun control. Well, we should have gun control because people die from guns. Well, we shouldn't have gun control because people, protect themselves with guns. And then it's like, well, why do we even have a gun problem in the first place? Because we have zero education. on guns. That's not something you're going to learn in school at all. You're not going to
Nope.
be taught anything
Nope.
unless someone actively gives you, some experience or some wisdom or tells you how important, something is to do or not to do. And when you have that responsibility of having a weapon in your hand, if we're not trusting our people to do the right thing, like we have a problem there. And maybe the problem is that technology advanced faster than our minds, like as far as acceptance.
Oh, that's
Like we
truly the
have all
case right
this
now.
technology and our mind is still down here. Like we're still down here. Like, why are we shooting people? Why? Well, it makes absolutely no sense to kill another person. It's like,
It
it
doesn't.
makes absolutely no sense to do that. To go to war. Or we're in 2021 and we're still having war talks, and battle, like dropping airstrikes over different countries. Like, why? Why is it happening? You would think if we're so advanced, if we're so good at everything, like why are these things the main actions in our reality?
Yeah, it's definitely, and I heard this on Kev Baker's show not too long ago, but they had talked about where, as a kid, as you're kind of growing up and learning about the history of the world, or at least the history that they gave you, right? And as you kind of look at where we should be going, or where we might be in the future, you growing up, I too definitely figured we should be in like a utopian
Oh
society
yeah.
by now,
Oh yeah.
with all of the amazing things that we've created, that we've understood, that we've learned. We should be in that space, but there seems to be these competing realities
We're
or
so
competing
divided.
belief structures. Yeah, that something is causing, is basically trying to instigate division,
Yes.
right? To create discoherence, right? Or dissonance, right? If you look at quantum mechanics and how you need things to be cold and you need to make sure that everything has that um, coherence, right? Everything needs to be working and operating together. When it doesn't, things become fuzzy, your outcomes become more sporadic, and you start to, not get solid truth of whatever's happening in the experiment that you're using. It's the same thing that goes for us, that, the world can't work right if there's no coherence, if there's warring realities and conflicting structures and whatnot throughout these 7 billion people that we got. You're gonna have that discoherence where it's basically just chaos. Am I right?
Oh yeah, that's 100% the case.
Yeah, I
I
just think
mean,
it's interesting. Like you bringing up the whole, we should be in a utopia by now. You would. I agree. You would think by now, after all of the amazing information that we've been presented with from history, from artifacts, from things that have been dug up, archaeology, just living day to day life. Maybe I am spoiled because I live in America. I don't know, but I've tried to live more remote before, and I've lived in a trailer before for a while just to be away from a bunch of different things and trying to experience an less privileged life, I guess. Just to really understand the core basics of humanity. And when I get to that point, I have no desire to do negative things in my world. Like when I'm at that point of less privileged, like I don't have anything to rely on, or I don't have, you know, fun society things to do or whatever. I do not want to incite any negativity on anybody else around me, because that's all I have to grab onto is everything else around me, right? When you don't have your own house, or you maybe only have a couple pairs of clothes even, and you don't have money, and you don't have, things, you don't have responsibilities. when I was in that, the closest state to that, all I wanted was more positive things. And my attitude was more focused on being positive and happy because that's all I had, right? That's all I had. And it's
Yeah,
almost like the negativity and the discourse and the strife that's happening, it's caused by almost like the most, where the most money is being moved.
yeah.
It's almost like, because your New Guinea tribes, like, they're not out there starting strife with anybody. They're just doing their thing, right?
No.
The strife and the demand and the discourse, it's coming from those countries that have more money, and money is, it's just a token of value. It's really, we can go talk about money, probably another series on how, it's not even really real. It's just a mode of control. But when you think of it that way, all that information that we're taking in, like, why is it being manipulated this way? Why do you have to choose this side or this side? Why do you have to choose, this or this? Like, why are we not just trying to advance our species? Like, we've realized this. So, like,
And
why is that not the goal? And Jake, I think, hit it on the head with saying there's some sort of impedance or structure that is, moving information that way on purpose.
oh yeah, I mean, you can't not say that just about every form of information that you get could almost be defined as propaganda, because everything is a form of is that's written for the most part is someone's opinion on facts. It's
Yeah.
all it's all technically written from a perspective. It's not just, you know, information of or an article that's actually written from an objective point of view. For the most part, everything is written from a very subjective point of view.
I gotta go. I'm gonna pee my pants.
Well, yeah, I think if we take that, if we take that further, Zach, it it's definitely like you can look at it in the different types of information. Let's go with like I'll call it like a first class piece of information. That's the source, right? That
Yeah,
would be you. Let's say the information is a stone tablet, right? That has whatever on it. Maybe it's just a stone. Let's just keep it simple. It's a stone. It's an ancient stone. It's super old. That is the primary source of information. What
yep,
we get is secondary or tertiary
exactly.
when it becomes someone wrote about this special rock from, the Triassic period, blah, 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 it does all this. So then people then start to get their perspectives on that information, which itself is observational information from the source.
Exactly.
The
It's
rock
all
is the source information. The archaeologist then writes a report on it. That's like a second class piece of information about this rock. And then we get third class when we read about it and tell other people about that stuff. Because I'm not an archaeologist, but if I was to tell Zach about this cool rock from the Triassic period, he's only going to get the information that I have, and then he's going to further refract that into his own
not
perspective.
even that. I'm only going to get the information you give me, and not even all the information that you have. And
Yeah, you're
like,
getting the information from me. I'm getting the information from an article I read from an archaeologist. The archaeologist is getting it from everything he's learned after observing this rock.
yeah, so what I'm saying is basically everything that's written by somebody, it has an intention already.
Yeah,
Whether you like it or not, there's no matter what about it, it's always going to have an intention. So that intention is what's going to inherently throw the bias into the per se article or the information that you're taking. And
yeah,
the bigger the information per se, like abortion or something like that, the bigger the intention that there is behind it. So that's where I think it's all really
The
coming
bigger the
from,
question, the bigger the intention. That's kind of interesting because if you look at it from that point of view, if you're going to throw out a divisive topic like that, to be or not to be, pro-life or pro-choice, what is the intention of that? To not ever
And
evolve the human mind?
I think it all comes down all comes down to what Jake said earlier is dissonance, is
Create discord,
discord. Yeah,
right? Chaos, right?
chaos.
But yeah, like let's maybe run with Zach's thing. The bigger the question, the bigger the intent of what they want, right? Let's go with one of the bigger ones. Let's go religion, religion or science, about how the world itself, all of existence is created. That's possibly one of the biggest questions out there. And that is one of the hottest topics out there of what do you believe about our reality? I mean, we're even talking about it right now on this.
Yeah, that's interesting
know?
to say that because if you look at science versus religion, if you're a person that thinks only science is true, and then you have someone that says my belief in my God is what's true.
Every word of the Bible is literally
Yes,
factually true.
yeah. So okay, so we'll have those two extreme beliefs, I suppose.
Too extreme.
And you present that, well, then reality has to be that way. It's just like the last video I said, if you subscribe to that, that's what reality gives to you because it's all you're able to experience or perceive or observe. So if you are 100% on biblical text, reality is going to build that for you. Like that's where you're going to live. You're going to believe in miracles and you're going to, try to understand how God works and how, the history of the Israelites and his people. And then you get into prophecy, with prophetic things that are still, due to happen. And that's where you get other individuals that take it to heart so much that, their whole YouTube channel is on prophetic things that are going to happen or prophecy and whatnot, and that's their world, that's their reality, where you have your scientific person who's all about science, nothing about spirituality or religion or any kind of notion of God, but they're all on facts, data, experimentation, and the reality only presents itself that way to them. So we're getting into that idea of what you choose to believe is what reality provides for you. And maybe these bigger questions, with the intent, like what's the intent behind these bigger questions? And it's almost like another trap, like another rabbit hole. If we can cement the mind into that side, like pro-life, pro-choice, or if we can cement the mind into science or religion. It doesn't matter which side it's on. We're just trying to cement the mind in there, and that almost gives someone from the outside an ability to maneuver that mind, because that's all that they're able to perceive or get.
That's deep right there, man.
I'm still thinking more on that. It's almost like reality's alive, and it wants.
You look like you're slipping away.
Yeah, it's
there,
almost
Max.
like reality's alive.
Where are you going, buddy?
It wants to cement you into something. Like it needs time too, because once you're exposed to an idea or once you're exposed to information, it's like wet cement, it's still sloshy and whatever. It's not settled yet.
Yep.
It's not until you structure that and really like almost spoken word deem that to be your life or what you believe, and then it like cements and solidifies.